In this week's podcast, we're talking about sports and specifically kids in sports. The game has changed for so many, and I think that it's important that we discuss it and work for our kids in all of this. Kathryn Ames, professional counselor, founder of Thru the Game, is such a great resource. I've enjoyed her friendship. I've known her for quite some time. Our girls played lacrosse in the same club. Kathryn, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
I love what you're doing, and I want to dive right into the topic, but introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I am a professional counselor, as you said. I've been in the field, over 20 years working with teenagers. Really feel passionate about mental health on many, many levels. Also have a background in coaching and in athletics myself. And I always say that I'm a mom too. I'm a mom and a wife. And, I think it's important for people to know the different hats I wear and the different perspectives I bring to conversations, because I have witnessed and seen a lot through many different lenses. So
you have lived it as I have. We share similar stories in our girls about the same age. And my daughter, Addie, who plays collegiate lacrosse now, as yours does, went through your program, and I know you worked with them in talking about the mental health of athletes. So there are a lot of things we can talk about with sports and with athletes, but let's get right into how sports have changed for kids. How is it different now, and why does that matter?
Well, I think when you look back at the evolution of sports, it's always it started as a fun, activity arena of exercise and connection and community. It has really evolved into a very competitive environment, and not to say that is bad, but the stakes have really raised, right? So what I talk a lot about is the rise of club sports, and just the availability to play and to train every day of the year has really been a huge shift in from maybe how I grew up. I grew up playing 3 sports. So I was doing many different things all throughout the year. And we do see less and less of that because every sport now has the ability to specialize and focus. The other thing that's changed is, well, there's many, many factors, but the cost of, continuing education, of college, is really weighing on folks to kind of get a return on their investment. So when it's, these high intense arenas are starting at a younger age, they're building and they're building. By the time the kids get to high school, the goal is really, how do I play at the next level for many? And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure on the families because the cost of higher education is so great. So there's so many things that have really shifted the game.
Realistically, and I've heard this number somewhere along the way, how many kids end up playing collegiate sports and then professional sports?
It really is a pyramid. It really does. Kids start to kind of fall off. And I talk to athletes a lot about that, when they're ready to, I always say, like, hang up the cleats or hang up the goggles, hang up whatever, the skates. And it's hard as they transition away from something that's really been a part of their life. But it's a natural thing that happens. Very few will go on, obviously, to play at the professional level. And not all sports have that option anyway, and to make money at that level, to make it a career. In college, the last statistic I had heard was 2 to 3% will play in college, which is really small when you think about it. But, these kids that are specializing in the club scene, a lot of them, that is their goal. That's what they're investing to get better, to have different experiences for sure. But their hope, I think, is to play at that next level, whether it's D1, D2, D3. But it's a lot of pressure. I think there's other things, though, that definitely add to the mental health, other than just the pressure of sports and how the sports scene has changed.
Let's talk about that. So obviously today's environment, I mean, what we've been through in a pandemic, the kids who had that sport as an outlet day in and day out, they had that taken away for many over 6 months. They weren't able to even practice. What do you see in the mental health of athletes now that concerns you outside of the pressure?
Well, I think I always say that these issues that we're seeing now really existed pre-COVID. We had a lot of mental health concerns prior to COVID. COVID, I think, brought a lot to the surface, really made us, I think, on a bigger scale, look at what is stressing us out, the causes of stress, the impact of chronic stress, how do you deal with uncertainty, fear, worry, doubt, all those things. Now, the reality is some families live with that all the time. COVID, in a way, leveled the playing field, right? Because anybody could get it. Now, I say that, and I do know many communities have been hit harder, no question. But anyone could get sick. So it was a very interesting, if you step back and think of the year, it's kind of interesting that it was like, it's like cancer, right? Some people have a predisposition, but anybody can really get it. And this was a long stretch of that. So obviously the impact of COVID certainly brought some things to the surface, maybe for people that had never experienced some of those issues of doubt, worry, fear, uncertainty. But what we've seen in the mental health side of things is that anything that was pre-existing, depression, anxiety, things like that, really got amplified this past year. So I guess one of the things I really want to drive home to people is I hope we can take this year as an opportunity to look at things differently and an opportunity maybe to grow, because these things were happening prior to COVID. COVID like put the brakes on, made us really look at things a little differently in many ways. And now what are we going to do moving forward?
Yeah.
Now, why are things like depression and anxiety on the rise? You know, those are big questions. I mean, I just did a webinar last night on technology, and I think there's no denying that technology, while it's incredible, we have the opportunity to do things like this, at the same time, really does contribute to how a lot of our kids feel in terms of isolation, impacting their self-image, their communication skills. So many things are getting hit, and the train's already left the station, right?
Yeah.
We're already
Yeah, we can't put it all away, right? We can't
No.
take the phones away and computers, right?
But it's a matter of balance and education for the kids and the parents. So I think there's just so many factors. I think, you know, technology also provides a lot of awareness, and sometimes it's a lot, right? For kids to have it 24/7 on their phone, exposure to violence and to, you know, everyone else's life,
right?
Constant comparison. It's just so different. I mean, it's just so, it's a lot of overload, system overload.
It is. And system overload for the kids, and I mean younger and high school and college, but for parents in dealing with it. So I want to talk about that. What can we do? You know, we know there's a problem. We know mental health is on issues are on the rise with kids and with adults. But what do we do? How do we deal with it?
Well, I think we have to, I always talk about this balance. I probably open every webinar, every workshop I do with this theory of acknowledgement, acceptance on one side and movement on the other. And we have to, in my opinion, we have to strike this balance. We can't just sit in all the bad stuff, what's happening and how awful it is. We get stuck there.
You do, yeah.
We can't get stuck there, but it is important we recognize, acknowledge, and accept, because that's the only way we're going to grow, is to see, okay, yes, this is happening. On the flip side, we have to then say, what do we do now with what we know? We have to keep going. And we can't just move either. We can't just go without recognition. So I really feel like if we can change the way we think about this and work maybe in, that type of theory, right? Acknowledgement, acceptance, and movement, that helps give us a framework. I also feel very strongly that we have to make mental health a priority. It's no different than our physical health, right? Or we go to the dentist, we go to the doctor, we get physicals, we do all these things, but yet
we get skin
health,
checks. But it's interesting because I just went to the dermatologist. Why are we not doing yearly mental checks?
Right. And, there is a lot of movement in this direction. I mean, I just took my son yesterday to get his physical for swimming, and there's new forms out now that do ask a lot more about mental health, and I'm thrilled to see it. But I think we need to make it more a part of our conversation, part of family dinners. It's okay to acknowledge what's happening. Again, we don't want to get stuck in it. And I think some people get very fearful that if we start talking about it, we're going to all, it's a weakness maybe, or you got to be tough and you got to be resilient. And you do, we want strength and resiliency 100%, but we can't just stuff things down.
Yeah.
And I tell you, one of my big missions with this company is to normalize the conversation on mental health, to talk about it, because I feel very strong that when we share our stories, when we share our struggles, they have less power over us. But if we just, go through life and stuff things in and just, it stacks and it takes root in our body, and it does manifest, and it will come forward in some way, shape, or form in life. I've seen that on a personal level. And just in talking about the impact of stress over time, what it can do to us. So, we say, what do we do as parents? I think, and as a community, we have to make some changes, and acknowledging that this is a crisis, definitely in the state of Colorado.
I mean, it is everywhere.
It is.
It absolutely is everywhere. So back to sports. I love this idea that you're normalizing it and in a place where kids like to be. So we know, and if we could just change the framework around sports, as you said earlier, needing to be a way to get into professional sports or something. But my son is 11 and he plays basketball, and he had a rough time with a coach and a team that we don't have to go into, but it was really tough. And he's at such a formative age of just loving the sport that he came home upset one night after breaking a finger playing. And he said, "Mom, I don't want to play in the NBA. I just want to play basketball." Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did you ever think that you had to play in the NBA? Because we don't expect that of you. But there's almost this expectation on kids very young that they're playing to be like the professionals. Yes, and to train like the professionals, and to do it multiple times a day. And as you said, year round. And I'm bothered by that. And with a daughter who is playing collegiate sports, I realize that's not for everyone. But we also told her, like, you have to play another sport. You have to, for the mental side of it, for your muscle memory, to get your head out of that sport for a while. Right. But the coaches didn't always like that. Like they want kids who play year round in one sport as well.
Well, and the competition, I mean, everything is bigger, better, smarter, wiser, stronger, faster.
More expensive.
More expensive. And I mean, these kids, I'm shocked when families will spend, thousands of dollars on speed training and weight training and private lessons in addition to practice at young ages all year. But what are they doing about their own mental health, their own wellness, and the way I explain it to kids, it's like, if you do want to be better, this does help you. This has to be a part of the equation, because when you chip away at your mental health, what you're essentially doing is unpacking the things that you're holding on to. And those things that we hold are like running with weights. And if you're training with weights you could argue, well, maybe that makes me stronger on some level. And after a while, it holds you back. It drags you down. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
You know, the goal is to play free, you know, to have fun, and to enjoy it. Like we said, kind of go back to the connection, the love. I mean, my college teammates are still, you know, some of my closest friends. The kids I've coached over the years still reach out to me from 25 years ago. So it's an amazing bonding space. And why I'm such an advocate of sports is because it really is our one true space that's left without technology, where you're learning about life. You have to navigate working through an injury, starting, not starting, being on the bench, dealing with coaches that like you, coaches that yell, coaches that are mean, coaches that are nice, all those different personalities, teammates that you maybe get along with or not. Those are great life lessons. And it's our one last space where you're not running down the field with a phone in your hand.
Yeah.
You know, so it really is sacred in that way. But I want to go a step further and incorporate this concept of mental health into what we're doing with kids.
So let's talk about how you do that. The company that you formed, I love how you're marrying these things and working with mental health and athletes, but what is the company and how are you using your skills?
So this really was a natural merge for me because I am a counselor. I was an athlete. I am a coach. You know, it just seemed like it all made sense. And probably, 8 years ago or so, I started doing this with Team 180, where the owner and we just came together and I really just asked her, can I start doing something different outside of coaching, you know, running some small groups, and what can we offer that's a unique piece to this club that really is about the whole athlete. And she was totally on board. And so that's where I started this work. Then about, a couple months ago, a year ago, I was inspired by my own health journey with cancer. Cancer really wakes you up and tells you, like, stop wasting time, right? Do what really matters. And so I decided, I was inspired, and I said, I need to get this out on a broader scale. So since launching, I don't even remember when we launched, December, maybe. No, maybe it was prior to that. But in the last 6 months, I went from 1 client to 5 clients. And so now we're working with 5 different programs, one of which is in Tennessee. And we're working with an inner city rugby team, which is the coolest thing ever. So the goal with Thru the Game is to bring mental health forward, give kids tools and strategies. Again, it's not about being sad and depressed, and it's not like a therapy group. It is about proactive support and a safe space to talk about things, because I have the background to be able to know how to navigate those conversations, but the goal is really prevention. So we work with athletes and parents and coaches. So that's what I really love about it, is it's a 3-tiered approach. And there's a client we picked up in the Springs, a swim team, where we have a year contract with them doing all of those things. So once a month, I get to meet with their parents. We're doing 2 athlete workshops, and then I have several coach trainings throughout the year. So I can't wait to see, the impact of a year of this type of work with their community.
I love it.
So there's a lot of potential, and it's exciting, and there's not really enough of this out there. People want information. So it's exciting work.
I love it that you're giving them tools, because that to me is the missing link. There's an issue, but what tools are we giving parents, and what tools are we giving either athletes or just students or young people to deal with their mental health? Whatever those tools might be, in what you do in helping them realize, wait, this is anxiety, and here's what I do when I feel that.
100%. I mean, that recognition and that self-awareness, once we can tap into that, then all of a sudden the light goes off. Not only am I self-aware, I can then be more aware for who's next to me.
Yeah.
And that is crucial. That sense of connection, of knowing what other people are going through, compassion. Boy, are we missing some of those things right now.
Yeah. More of that in our world right now, all of that, being aware of it. Well, I have two questions that I ask everyone who comes on the podcast. I really love the people and their tenacity, their passion in what they're doing. So from that, I think I learn, and I hope that those who are listening can learn from these two questions. And the first one is, what tool do you like best? Could be just now, or it could be throughout your life, either tool, or it doesn't have to be technology, but for productivity and fulfillment. What's your favorite tool?
Yeah, it's funny you asked, because when I read that question, I thought, well, gosh, I'm not that tech savvy. Like I was like, I don't know, but I do know. And you know what it is? I think the best thing for productivity is self-love and self-care. And I'm going to go about this from a different angle. I think we need to have boundaries, know our values, and prioritize. And boy, I mean, there's been times in my life I've lost sight of that, where I've put other people's needs in front of my own, because I'm not a selfish person. And just because you take care of yourself doesn't mean you're selfish. I think I had to really shift my mindset around that. But the more I can take care of myself, go for a walk, take some deep breaths, I'm better. I am more productive when I can do that. And so that's the ticket to me. It's not go, 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 keep up with the Joneses. That's a fast burnout track.
Absolutely. I love that. That is a perfect tool. Just a great way to answer that question. Thank you. And then the other one is, and people interpret this one differently too. And I don't think necessarily it's something people know when they're young, or even in college, or maybe after a first career. Here you are starting a new company. But the question is, what is your purpose, and when did you know it?
Gosh, probably, I think I've known my purpose since I was little, for a long time. I always used to say, I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place. Obviously, that's a huge, lofty goal, but I've always felt drawn to the concept of, what you do on this earth matters. How you leave it. It's not about the cars you drive and the biggest house, the house you live in. It's the impact on others. And I've always really been driven by that human connection. And I think it started probably at a young age. It's funny, yesterday, some of my colleagues were saying I'm like a magnet, and that people are really drawn to me. But I laughed. I said, but some people are really repelled by me. I think that, but they said, yeah, but those people don't matter. Those people maybe are jealous or whatever, who knows, but I feel my purpose is really about changing the world in a way of helping kids, really helping. I've always been drawn to teenagers. I just love them. I have a soft spot for them. So just kind of, like I said, making the world a better place, as lofty and, maybe cheesy as that sounds, that's really the goal.
Not cheesy at all. I love it. Well, where can people find you and learn more about Thru the Game?
So we have a website, and it's just thruthegame.com, THRU, Thru the Game. And then my email and all my information is on there. And people can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We try to post things weekly, and we have
Great.
parent webinars, and any coaches or parents that are interested, reach out, we can have a conversation. But even along this journey, I've talked to amazing professionals who have inspired me. So anyone who wants to learn, give me a call.
I'll be sure and put that in the show notes too, so that people can find you easily. Kathryn, thanks so much. All the best to you and your family. Glad to hear you're healthy, and hope to talk again soon.
Thank you so much.